also hear from our fearless warrior, Brother Johnny Achi from Arab Americans for Syria, who has been a regular guest here on Freedom Now since 2011, discussing first, why the Syrian people continue to support President Bashar al-Assad. Second, the framework of how the United Snakes uses the divisive tactic amongst the supporters of sectarianism or non-sectarianism as a tool to interfere in Syrian civil issues as a foot in the door for regime change. Third, an update on the current situation in Damascus as well as its current status in terms of Condoleezza Rice's proposal of building a new Middle East that she presented in Tel Aviv in 2006. This is Sister Tej with Freedom Now, and I would like to welcome back to Freedom Now Johnny Achi, who's with Arab Americans for Syria. Welcome back to Freedom Now, Brother Johnny.
Thank you so much for having me back, Sister Tej. It's an honor and a pleasure always to be on KPFK.
And so we just wanted to remind our listeners, Johnny, can you tell us why do you come on the air here to talk about what's happening in Syria?
Sister Tej, I've been invited by KPFK since early on of 2011, since the beginning of the crisis of Syria, to present the other view. The Western media has plenty of outlets to inform the public of their view of what's really happening in Syria, and we feel that the other side, the other point of view is never represented. So thank you, and thanks to KPFK for allowing us to do so. A lot of people accusing me of being on the side of evil, of being on the side of the Syrian government or the President Bashar al-Assad. I continuously tell people I'm not on the side. I'm on the side of a way of life that Syrians have lived for thousands of years. Syria has never been a radical state. Syria has never been an Islamist state, even though the majority of the Syrians are Muslims. However, we enjoy a different way of life in Syria. We believe that Syrians have been there for 7,000 years, way before Christianity or Judaism or Islam came about. So we were Syrians first before religions. And that's what we're trying to protect. The Western media, unfortunately, Sister Tej, tells a different story. The Western media tells you that the war in Syria is a civil war, is a sectarian war between what they consider an opposition being predominantly Sunni, which is an undoubted reality, but hardly relevant, since also the Syrian Arab Army is a predominantly Sunni Muslim as well. So the fundamental fault line in Syria is not between Sunnis and Alawis or Sunnis and Shiites or Sunnis and Christians or Sunnis and Kurds or Sunnis and any other minority, but between proponents or supporters of a secular non-sectarian constitution on one hand and the political arrangement based on a Sunni fundamentalist, however radical, Islamist, Wahhabist, Salafist interpretation of the Quran on the other hand. So allowing Al-Qaeda or other affiliate groups to take over power in Syria could never bring peace to the country, since the Islamist rule would hardly be tolerated by the majority of Syrians, who are Sunnis, by the way, and the majority of the population prefers a non-sectarian secular government. Not to mention that it would also result in the massacres of millions of sectarian fanatics, of Syrians by the sectarian fanatics that deem us to be infidels or apostates to their rules. I do want to mention also that back in 2012, hardly a year into the Syrian crisis, a New York Times article, there was a meeting at the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington. And I have read this back in 2012, and I would like to repeat it 4 years later. Peter Galbraith, a former American ambassador who had witnessed ethnic cleansing in the former Yugoslavia, made a chilling remark at the time and a chilling prediction. He said the next genocide in the world, and the article in the New York Times was called The World's Next Genocide. He said it will likely be against the Alawites and minorities in Syria will the Islamist groups take over So we're fighting for our lives. We're fighting for a way of life. And we're fighting against the lies and deceptions that is coming in the Western media that is destroying a country like Syria. That's the main reason we come out on the air and try to tell the other side of the story.
Well, we appreciate your work, my brother. And can you also give us an update on what is happening and what is the current state?
Sure. Yesterday was, of course, a major day in Syria because the first time maybe in 500 years that the birth of Prophet Muhammad and the birth of Jesus Christ fall on the same year. As you know, Prophet Muhammad followed, the Muslims around the world follow a different calendar. Mm-hmm. It is their 12th month of Rabi' al-Awwal, which is, it's different than the Christian calendar. So every 470 some years, it falls on the same day. And what a remarkable day that it fell this year on the same day. We've always celebrated in Syria one religion, one holiday. All Syrians celebrate the same holiday. But there was a special gift given on that day, and that was an airstrike, actually, that took out one of the major head of one of these most radical groups in Syria. His name is Zahran al-Lush. Has been a figure that has made Syrians, especially in Damascus, 5 million Syrians in Damascus have suffered on the hand of this guy. Hundreds, if not thousands, of rocket-propelled grenades falls randomly in a city, in the capital city of Damascus. Otherwise would have been a really peaceful town. Nothing really happening in Syria except those random rockets who have been falling and taking the lives of random Syrians, Christians or Muslims, women or children. Fell on school buses, fell on hospitals, fell everywhere. Finally, this guy was taken out today or yesterday by a Russian airstrike or a Syrian airstrike. Not sure about the details, but that just it couldn't be a better Christmas or a holiday gift for all Syrians, mainly in Damascus. Celebration in Damascus is huge by everyone, by all 5 million who live in Damascus. So that is a big major blow for these radical groups surrounding Damascus. Another major event on the ground, Tim, about 3,000 Islamist fighters also, including members of the Islamic State, including member Al-Qaeda, are prepared to evacuate from the southern, also another suburb of Damascus, through UN buses. They're going to be taken all the way out eastern, with their families, by the way, all the way to the eastern part of Damascus, Raqqa, where the majority of the ISIS, is concentrating. This is important for the city of Damascus, and it's important for the government of Syria as we are heading toward peace talks next month. So we feel that things are getting better. The Syrian Arab Army is having a bigger stronghold on a lot of big cities in Syria, ridding it of the fighters, and most of them as the UN brokered deals, which allows the fighters to leave on UN buses and go to the eastern part of Syria where ISIS and the other groups are concentrating, at least, trying to rid the big cities from the imminent danger of the fighting and preparing for, hopefully, some kind of the UN brokered peace talks that we all are praying and hoping for.
Can you elaborate on the UN Security Council, please?
Yes, absolutely. That is finally, after 5 years of different attempts by different groups, of course, the United States actually very biased brokering peace attempts have failed many times over the last 3 years because they were taking only one side, insisting on the Syrian government to collapse or to leave, or for Bashar al-Assad to leave before they can broker the peace. Finally, we realized that the world had come to a conclusion that an honest brokered peace agreement is the only way out. Finally, the Russians have put their foot down, and the Chinese and the other big countries of the world saying, we would like to participate in this and be an honest brokers into this. So finally, December 18, the UN Security Council unanimously approved the resolution endorsing an international roadmap for Syrian peace process and Syrian peace talks, which will take place sometime late January in Geneva. And it will include all parts. There was a part of all political opposition to the Syrian government, which we applaud, and we want political opposition to be part, a peaceful political opposition, not armed political oppositions. We would love for them to be part of the next government, so all parts of Syria are presented in the new government. And, that puts an end to the lies and deception again of the U.S. government trying to tell the world that, Assad is killing his people. by proof now of the war that most Syrians prefer to be under the rule of Assad, under the rule of secular government. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad was asked a very important question by Paris Match, a French magazine, and they were asking him, many people believe that the solution lies in your departure, Mr. President. Do you believe that your departure is the solution? His answer was very frank and brief. He said, is Iraq a better place after Saddam's departure? And let you know that the Syrian government was never a big fan of Saddam. Or after Gaddafi, he asked him, after NATO attacked Libya, did Libya become a better place? Or chaos took over after the Gaddafi's departure? President Assad feels, and the Syrian government feels, they have responsibilities to stay after they've seen what happened in Iraq and what happened in Libya. And the same was planned for Syria. They have a responsibility not to abandon the cities, not to abandon the citizens. And the Syrian people appreciate that of President Assad, and that's why they're supporting him, standing behind him. And that's why we believe that a transitional government maybe will take place one day after we rid Syria from all the terrorists and all the foreign fighters and all the jihadists of the world who have come into Syria, by way of Turkey and by way of NATO and by way of the United States.
Johnny, in terms of the 2006 building a new Middle East plan that Condoleezza Rice brought to Tel Aviv, where is this update in terms of a plan in the United States' eyes?
Thank you for asking that question. That just tells us, again, that this Arab Springs is nothing but a fake approach to change that Middle East. Condoleezza Rice talked about the creative chaos, or in Arabic we call this fawda al-khallaqa, very popular terms in the whole Arab world. We believe that when she said it back in 2006, and finally the plans came in 2010 and on, yes, they have changed regimes. Yes, they were successful in changing Mubarak and Gaddafi and Saddam. They failed. They failed in Syria, thanks to the courage of the Syrian people and the Syrian Arab army. And this is a policy that has been going on for years. And I'm surprised that the American population don't ask that question. They didn't hear these terms before Bush went into Iraq, destroyed the country, killed 1.5 million Iraqis, cost the life of 7,000 American soldiers. For what? For a lie. Has anyone been prosecuted for the lie of weapons of mass destruction? No one has. The same thing is trying to repeat itself in Syria. I want to remind the listener that one of these men who was part of that game was the former French Minister of Foreign Affairs. His name is Ronald Dumas. He said in a public apology to the Syrian people and to the world, he said that the war against Syria was planned 2 years before the so-called Arab Springs. And it has nothing to do with Syria's internal affairs. It only has to do that the current Syrian regime has an anti-imperialist and anti-Zionist stance. And that's where it stands. And that's why Syria today is paying its price. Had Syria's regime been pro-imperialist, been pro-West, believe me, President Bashar al-Assad would have been on the cover of Time magazine as Man of the Year, instead of him being fought and the Syrian people and the Syrian population and infrastructure being destroyed today. So it is a big game. It is what the United States governments and the imperialist world try to do in the world, is change regimes, and they feel that's their right. They want pro-Western regimes. They want to be able to go into, like they did in Libya. They went into took all the oil of Libya that belonged to the Libyan people. Now it's no longer in the hands of the Libyan people. And if people go back to 2010, the State Department have clearly indicated that the Colonel Gaddafi has become problematic, and he has become problematic mainly for partners of international oil companies. And his removal has to be changed because he's raising fees and raising taxes and demanding that more Libyans be on top jobs for foreign companies. I mean, things like this, been taking place forever. And hopefully it's time we're in the 21st century to stop saying no when it's wrong to do things the way the United States government has been doing.
Well, we thank you, my brother, and we appreciate your great work, and we support you, and self-determination, all power to the people ready for revolution.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.